What we can see here is that they're filling up their gas tanks, they're stockpiling food, water, and huge quantities of medical supplies. They're also shifting troops and equipment to strategic locations such as power plants and other critical infrastructures. All this is being done at nighttime. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So I got some urgent information to share with you today. Once again, I'm getting messages from all around the world from people in various fields such as military, law enforcement, IT, pilots who work for private firms that work for the State Department. Now, before I talk about that, I just want to talk about something that just happened today, and that's our glorious Prime Minister, the one and only Justin Trudeau, decided to implement for the first time ever the Emergency Powers Act. He decided to invoke this in order to quell the protests that are going on that are apparently very violent and exceed the capacity of law enforcement's current abilities to deal with the situation. So they needed to bring in one of the most aggressive, sweeping emergency powers acts that has ever been written in Canadian history. Only been invoked 3 times throughout history when it went by another name. That was the War Measures Act, and that was in World War I, World War II, and during some kind of liberation movement in Quebec in the 1970s where there was a lot of crazy stuff going on, a lot of renegade-style stuff. Unfortunately, that means that we no longer technically have a lot of the rights that we are offered under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. At least we have them, but of course now there's a lot more gray area, okay? If they want, they can take our stuff. They can make us do things. They can script us to do various things. They can put us in internment camps. And that's not an exaggeration. Go over and check out the channel of an acquaintance of mine, the Runkle of the Bailey. He's a Canadian lawyer, and he's going to break it down for you piece by piece what this Emergency Power Act actually affords the government and why it should concern you, not just you Canadians, but people in any country, because the precedent has now been set. Anytime there's the slightest bit of discomfort, the government can pull this card. And if you've been watching this channel for a long time, you know that I personally believe that this whole last 2 years has just been a training session for the big one, how the government's going to deal with the real deal, full meal deal apocalypse. All right. Now let's just get into these emails that I've been getting about stuff that's been going on around the world. But before I say that, I want to say that I bought some gold today. This is not shilling for any gold companies. This is a choice that I individually made. I've been really hella bullish on gold this year. You look at what happened after the 2008 recession. The fact is nobody's talking about gold right now, but the big money is starting to move into it, which is why the price is so incrementally starting to tick upwards. Now, I want to first share this updated information about the pilot who made the run to the Ukraine for the private firm, for the State Department, and talk about some of the cargo that he was offloading to Kiev. So, Nate, I just got back. It looks like half our plane had Javelins, wire-guided missiles. The other half of the plane was full of 40-millimeter grenade projectiles and pallets full of ammo cans nearly similar to the recognizable 50 caliber ammo can. Interestingly, the missiles were manufactured in 2003, which puts them in an expired category. Now, I don't want to go into great depth about what he's saying here, but basically he's saying that the U.S. is offloading expired military hardware to the Ukrainians. Also, there have been 10 or so flights similar to mine in the last week, and 40 more flights are expected to follow. Did you hear that? 40 more flights sending this level of military hardware to that region are expected to follow. Now, that's just this one firm. Okay, so imagine how much hardware is being trucked into that place. So let's carry on here. I asked the Young Cargo Services representative on the ground in Kiev if he has elected to receive arms and training from the government to help in the effort. He said, yes, I'm a lieutenant in the Guard. He was college age, I think. Also, purely by coincidence, our flight mechanic lives in St. Petersburg. He's Russian. He said there's no way the Ukraine gave willing citizens free guns. Discussion point later, maybe. I also left the plane area nervously and approached a dozen soldiers standing by with trucks ready to receive arms we just brought in. I don't think any of them spoke English. A standby help with translation. They mocked Russia by making exploding sounds and gesturing. An attempt, I think, at thanking us for the weapons. Interesting. Anyways, I'm not going to go into much more detail about that, nor am I going to disavow any identifying aspects of that individual, even though I can confirm their identity and that they are a real person and they're not pulling our chain. And I don't think that that's anything that's too outside the narrative of what mainstream media is saying. Now, I got another concerning message from somebody from Israel. They sent me pictures of a friend of theirs who's a pilot who took this picture in the Israeli Air Force. And so here's their message to me. Longtime lover of the channel. Thank you very much, by the way. I received these pictures and a friend of mine today taking over Israeli airspace. Israeli fighter jets escorting B-52 bombers from the Gulf of Iraq area westward, assuming towards Ukraine, although I'm sure that they wouldn't be sending actual bombers to Ukraine because right now they're actually moving all the troops out of Ukraine. That's the NATO troops, and putting them in the surrounding regions. I also got a similar message about maneuvers like this in the UK. For whatever reason, I don't know what's going on. The news here is saying that the Israeli embassy in Kiev was evacuated and moved very far west. I'm not sure what that means. And all the sensitive data was destroyed intentionally or taken with the staff. So that to me communicates some permanence with this move, that they're planning for some kind of long-term engagement. And it's very likely that all of this talk about, Russia attacking and whatnot could just be a bluff, and that this thing is going to be a long and protracted proxy schlag, just like Afghanistan. So I got another email from one of my main sources who presents as a bit of a geopolitical analyst, expert, if you will. And here's his breakdown of what is happening, okay? I got to tell you, I'm beginning to think all this back and forth from various parties, Biden, Jake Sullivan, Zelensky, and others, is looking like a deliberate effort to keep everyone so confused that we don't know which way is up. Now, it would make perfect sense that there's going to be all kinds of attempts to deceive the other party. And of course, within that, you have to shape public opinion. And there's just this war of deception right now going on between both sides. And of course, that factors into the propaganda that we're both receiving and the information war that's going on, okay? I read the other day that the Wednesday thing, that is, the Ukrainian president saying that Russia is going to attack on Wednesday, was reported by the German paper Der Spiegel. I don't know who the source was. I just ignored it since, other than the people who are preparing a false flag, no one probably knows. I'm not sure if he's being facetious there or what. What is more important than anything Zelensky might say is the fact that the Russian Foreign Ministry has said that they are optimizing their embassy in Kiev, reducing staff because they fear some sort of provocation against embassy staff. Personally, I suspect some sort of chemical attack, a la the one in Dume, Syria back in 2018, but bigger. There was a false flag attack allegedly perpetrated by the White Helmets. I'm not sure who that is, a group of supposed Syrian medical personnel who actually work with, okay guys, this is getting pretty heavy. If what he's saying is true, I don't even really want to be touching this stuff, to be brutally honest, but you got to get this information out there just so we're ahead of the curve, because I know a lot of people think it's a big wag the dog nothing burger, but it's either a nothing burger or it's the most epic something burger that we've ever faced as a species, okay? The point is, a chemical attack is a perfect provocation. Both sides in Ukraine have already warned that a false flag is coming. Russia accuses Ukraine of preparing a chemical attack supposedly used by U.S. mercenaries inside Ukraine. Blackwater, maybe. That was in December. Then the U.S. claimed Russia was producing a video that showed the U.S. mercenaries faking an attack that was supposedly a fake itself to justify the Russian invasion. So now we're in a situation that both sides have already blamed the other for a false flag. So now it will be impossible to tell who started the war unless it's obvious, such as a new Ukraine offensive, which is actually announced by one side or the other. And we can be sure Russia isn't going to announce one, since they've spent the last years saying they don't want one. This is an info war, guys. Both sides are saying the opposite thing. Remember, this is exactly what you would expect in the run-up to WW3. Now, he gives a bunch of reasons as to why he thinks it might be a chemical attack, and I might go in greater depth with his email in a future video. I've asked this individual to come on the channel and just have a discussion about this. They don't want to be putting themselves in the limelight for reasons I can potentially understand. But I guess it's stupid me for talking about this stuff. Once again, this is all just speculation. We need to take this as a grain of salt. It's information for you to consider so you are not stunned and shocked and in a panic frenzy when the shizzy actually does hit the fizzy, all right? I got one final email here I want to share with you guys. I live in Australia and I work in an IT department for one of the top 5 logistics companies in the world. I'm not going to name which one that is. Over the last 2 months, our company is facing more cyber attacks than we have had in the last 5 years. Infrastructure is starting to break down for no reason. Data streams are being disrupted for days, and so on and so on. Our company handles about 35% of the European transport volume. That includes food supply, medical supply, industrial logistics for major industries such as car producers, electronics, and so on. Well, you get the idea. That's one thing I never really considered with cyber attacks is logistics. So much of our logistics is done with computers. Like if UPS caught a bug, or if USPS or Canada Post or FedEx, man, that would be total chaos. I'm also a reserve officer in the Austrian Army. And what I see here concerns me a lot. The Austrian Army is preparing for a blackout scenario for quite some time now, but in reality, they're prepping for something bigger than this. You must know Austria is a neutral country, therefore we are not NATO member state. Anyway, what we can see here is that they're filling up their gas tanks, they're stockpiling food, water, and huge quantities of medical supplies. They're also shifting troops and equipment to strategic locations such as power plants and other critical infrastructures. All this is being done at nighttime. Maybe because people should not see and worry too much? Question mark. The reserve servicemen received notice to have the gear ready at any time to be prepared for emergency deployment if the command gives the order. The only time in history after World War II that the Austrian army was put to silent alert and into a state of high readiness was during the events of the Prague Spring. We all know what happened back then. Forgive me, I don't know what you're referring to there, but I'm going to presume, and this is oddly coincidental, this is oddly similar to what is going on in Canada right now, isn't it? Interesting. I can tell you one thing. Something is coming. A storm is on the rise. If the Austrian military is on silent alert, the roof is on fire because usually they are sleepyheads when it comes to such things. We are only 600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, so if it comes to massive refugee movements, Austria would of course help them. But we are a small country with limited resources facing a disrupted and attacked supply chain which is getting worse every day. Well, that's something you don't hear on the news, isn't it, guys? I'm going to encourage everybody, get your affairs in order right now, because like I said, this could be the mother of all nothing burgers, or it could be the mother of all something burgers. Let me know which one you think it is in the comment section below. Thanks for watching Canadian Prepper Out.